Hello, my name is Carrie Brown and I am with the Central Mississippi Regional Library System. Today I'm going to be reading to you chapters 7 and 8 of Calendar Mysteries, June Jam. Written by Ron Roy, illustrated by John Stephen Gurney, published by Random House, New York. Chapter 7, The Long Neck. What do you mean? Nate asked. The trap is just the way we left it. Nothing fell in, Bradley. It's not the way we left it, Bradley said. He opened the gate and ran into the garden. I left a big strawberry right in the middle of it. Now look. He held up what was left of the strawberry. A bite had been taken out of it. I don't believe it, Brian said. He moved the branches aside and peered down into the hole. Nothing's down there. Something bit the berry without falling in, Lucy said. It has to be some kind of bird, Nate announced. It just flew in here, took a bite, then flew away again. I don't think so, Lucy said. When birds peck at something, their beak leaves tiny holes. She pointed at the strawberry Bradley was holding. See? Half the berry is gone, but there are no beak holes. Some creature took a real bite. Maybe it was something with the long neck, Brian said. It could reach its neck out and take a bite without stepping on the trap. Like what? Bradley scoffed. A giraffe? Nate laughed. No, a python. In Connecticut? Brian asked. Lucy giggled. Maybe it was an octopus. They don't have necks, Bradley said. But they do have those long arms, Lucy answered. She waved her arms in the air. Bradley threw the damaged strawberry in the field behind the barn. He kicked a rock into the fence. Now what do we do? Nate asked again. Now we get mad, Bradley said. Just then Josh yelled from the house. Lunch in 5 minutes, you guys. You too, Nate and Lucy. Great, I'm starving, Nate said. First we have to do something, Bradley said. Come with me. He ran into the barn and over to the workbench. Help me get this down, he said. What? Brian asked. Dad's scene, Bradley said. What's a scene? Nate asked. A big fishing net, Bradley said. It's that rolled up thing. The kids tugged the net off the bench. It plopped down onto the barn floor. Our dad showed us how to catch minnows with this thing in the river, Brian said. It's huge when it's opened. The kids unrolled the net onto the floor. It was a big square, 10 feet by 10 feet. What are we going to do with it? Nate asked. Cover the strawberries, Bradley said. Come on, let's drag it outside. The kids lugged the net through the door, through the gate, and into the garden. First, let's make sure there are no more bitten berries, Bradley said. They found a few that had been bitten and threw them into the field. Then they each took a corner of the net and dropped it over the strawberry patch. Through the holes in the net, they could see several ripe strawberries. Something can still crawl under the net, Lucy said. Not when we're done, Bradley said. Get those bricks. There was a pile of bricks in the corner of the garden. The kids each grabbed some, and they laid them on the edges of the net, all around. Nothing is getting under there, Brian said, wiping his hands on his shorts. I hope you're right, Bradley said. Let's go eat. Bradley, Brian, and Nate and Lucy ran across the yard and into the kitchen. Josh, Dink, and Ruth Rose were eating tuna sandwiches at the table. Pal was in his favorite spot, next to Josh's feet. 4 plates holding sandwiches sat on the counter. Near each plate were a napkin, a glass of milk, and 2 cookies. Where are Mom and Dad? Bradley asked Josh. Dad went to get a haircut for Father's Day, Josh said, and Mom is on a secret mission. Secret? Brian said. Cool, tell us. She didn't even tell me, Josh said. Wash your hands, please. They're clean, Brian said. We just washed Polly and our hands at the same time. Josh inspected his little brother's hands. Wash again now, please. Use a brush on those fingernails. The 4 younger kids lined up at the sink and washed. What are you kids doing in the garden? Dink asked. The 4 kids took turns explaining how some creature was biting and ruining the strawberries and some of the other stuff. We built a scarecrow, but that didn't work, Lucy said. Then we dug a hole in the ground and made a trap. But nothing fell in, Nate said. No matter what we try, the creature is still eating strawberries, Bradley said. What kind of creature? Ruth Rose asked. A real long neck, Nate said. It has a big mouth, Lucy said. It's real sneaky, Brian added. Sounds like Josh is your creature, Dink said. Everyone laughed. After lunch, Bradley, Brian, Nate, and Lucy went back to the garden. They removed the bricks. They pulled the net off the strawberry patch. I don't believe it, Bradley said. He fell onto his knees. Before lunch, at least 10 strawberries had been perfect. Now 5 were bitten in half. Chapter 8. The monster is smart, but Lucy is smarter. This is creeping me out, Nate said. No matter what we do, this thing outsmarts us. Lucy picked up one of the chewed berries off the plant. It seems like the creature waits till we're gone before he gets the berries, she said. It could be watching us, waiting for us to leave. Yeah, but where is it? Brian asked. And how does it get inside the fence? Maybe it's already inside the fence, Bradley said. He looked at the tomato plants, the zucchini plants, and the other stuff his parents had planted. Maybe it's hiding. Then we'll find it, Brian said. Let's check everything inside the fence. The kids searched the garden, turning over every leaf on every plant. The only creatures they found were tiny bugs and one little toad. Toads are good in gardens, Lucy said. They eat insects. Nate held the small toad in his hand. Could this be our monster? He asked. No, his mouth is way too small, Lucy said. We might as well give up, Brian said. You can if you want, Bradley said, but I'm not stopping until I find this berry-biting monster. I'll stay here forever if I have to. Till you're old and gray? Nate asked. Yup, Bradley said. Even when it snows in December? Brian teased. Yeah, I'll build an igloo and sit in it all winter, Bradley said, trying not to smile. I have an idea, Lucy said. The 3 boys looked at her. If this creature is watching us, maybe we can play a trick on him, she said. How do we do that? Brian asked. We pretend to leave the garden, Lucy said. But we don't really go away. We just hide. Maybe we'll catch him in the act. But if we can see the creature can see us, Bradley said. There's no place in this garden to hide. We can make something, Lucy said. She picked up one end of the net. In your encyclopedia, you showed us the men who dug a deep hole for the buffalo. Remember the picture that showed the men hiding in some bushes and tall weeds? We can do the same thing. There are no tall weeds, Nate said. We pulled them all up, remember? And we never got our ice cream either. Watch, Lucy said. She grabbed some of the weeds from the pile they'd made. She wove the weave stems through the holes on the net. She added more weeds, weaving them in and out. I see what you're doing, Bradley said. It's camouflage, like army guys use when they're hiding. When we're done, we can hide behind it, Lucy said. The creature won't be able to see us. Awesome, Nate said. The 4 kids worked fast, weaving weeds into the net. Soon it was a thick blanket of stems and leaves. Drag it to the scarecrow, Lucy said. We'll throw it over his head. It was heavy, but they managed to hoist the camouflage net over the scarecrow's head. The net made a sort of tent where they could crouch and hide. The kids sat on the ground behind the net. They each poked a hole so they could peek out at the strawberry patch. At least this thing blocks the sun, Brian said. And the breeze, Nate complained. I'm roasting. Just think about ice cream, Bradley said. That's all I've been doing, Nate said. We should be quiet, Lucy whispered. The creature can probably hear us. The kids sat silently behind the net. Flies and mosquitoes buzzed around them. A tiny bird landed on the net and pecked at a blossom. They heard an airplane fly over. Bradley closed his eyes. He thought he might lie down and take a nap. He thought about chocolate ice cream. Suddenly, Lucy grabbed his arm. I hear something, she said. Bradley opened his eyes. He peeked through his peephole. Oh, no, he said. He crawled out from behind the net. Pal was standing in the middle of the strawberry patch. Pal, what are you doing? Bradley asked his dog. Brian, Nate, and Lucy stood next to Bradley. "Pal is our mystery creature?" Brian asked. "Bad dog," Bradley said. But Pal wasn't paying attention. He was digging a hole and barking. Dirt flew up behind him as he dug. Bradley ran over and grabbed Pal's collar. "Stop," he said. Pal stopped digging, but he kept barking. Bradley looked into the hole Pal had dug. He saw a smooth rock at the bottom of the hole. Then he saw something else. The rock had 4 legs and a head. Thank you. Be sure to tune in next week for chapters 9 and 10. Goodbye.